I'm gonna have to talk him off the ledge tonight. First of all, before we get started, I want to thank all of my sponsors, Waterland, Powerhouse Batteries, Thump Gel, GTO, Gunnersville. If you're ever at Gunnersville, go to GTO, see Paul and Jana. They have GTO at Waterfront, GTO in Gunnersville, and now they own the one at Goose Pond. So if you're ever at Gunnersville, go by and see Paul and Jana. Tell them Slick told you to come by and see them. They're the most awesome people in the world. And GAF Marine. I put a video up yesterday of GAF Marine and the fiberglass repair that they did for an angler at the MLF Invitationals. He hit a log in practice and he wasn't going to be able to fish the tournament, and they fixed it in 24 hours. Now, they're not going to fix your fiberglass work in 24 hours, okay? However, in those situations, they go out and help people. They get them on the water, and they're awesome people. So, and Icon Boats, hey, greatest boat on the water. It's incredible. My son fishes out of an LX21, and I don't worry about him on the water because it's safe, rough water. So thank you. And Fishing Chaos, everybody that we have. Tonight, Matt and I have been talking about this for a long time. You know, there's a lot of things that the public doesn't know about the way the Elite Series works and Elite Series anglers. You can't speak about anything. If something happens to you, if you're fined, if you're penalized, whatever, you can't speak about it. You're even threatened speaking about it. We're going to talk about that a little bit tonight. We've got a situation right now with, you know, an angler this weekend in the Elite Series that he got threatened to either not fish day one or be fined. And he was told if you speak about it, if anybody finds out about it, you know, you're going to be kicked out of the Elites. Unfortunately for Bassmaster, there's good people that work there, and they tell stuff that happens because they're not happy with it either. But you know, we're going to talk about the wreck tonight. I see the comments about the wreck. We're not here just to talk about negative stuff about Bassmaster. Matt's going to talk about his whole career and how awesome it's been, and that's one of the things that I want to talk about is, you know, he's had this extended career with no blemishes. It's been an incredible career that you've had. I told you earlier, the only thing we've ever seen on the internet is between you and Tharp. And I think y'all are good. Y'all are good.
We're actually pretty good friends.
And, you know, when you fish with the same people week in and week out, that obviously that's going to happen. But I wanted Matt to be able to tell his story and talk about, you know, the polygraph test, because the one thing that I didn't want to happen when you've had a career like he's had, with no blemishes, that you don't want it to come off as you cheated or you got disqualified for breaking rule, whatever it may be. I didn't want it to be any negative impact on his career because he's had an awesome career. And I wanted to let him talk about it, and that's what I'm going to do. In a few minutes, I'm going to let him just talk about everything. I will ask him some questions, and y'all can ask questions here that you want to know. And listen, we've got it on the TV behind the camera. It goes by really, really fast. So if we don't get to your question and you want to ask a different question, or you want to ask the question and we don't get to it, just repeat it. We'll get to it, I promise you. But we got a lot of things to talk about tonight. And, you know, one of the things I want to put out there before I turn it over to Matt is that when I started this a couple of years ago, it was at Cayuga. It was after Cayuga. And it was one of those situations where I was upset because I didn't like the things that had happened in the MLF event. And you know, I had traveled all over the country with my son because I knew he wanted to fish professionally. And if my son was fishing at that time, I would have been really, really upset because I had friends on the way home that had done things with the utmost integrity, and I didn't feel like everybody did that. My goal has been to make bass fishing better than how I found it. You may disagree with how I go about it, but it's to bring things to light that a lot of people don't know. And one of the things that people don't know is within these organizations, if you say something that the organizations don't like, that they deem negative, you can be kicked out of an organization at any time. And in my opinion, Bassmaster runs their organization kind of like the mafia. And that's partly why I've been so upset with them. No, Corey, you say now that your son fishes MLF, now are they the good guys? No, my son wants to fish the opens next year, and I'm scared to death. I'm scared to death because of just what you're going to hear from this man tonight with the polygraphs, with the whole organization, because I do know a lot of stuff within the organization that that's upsetting with how it works, because you have no say-so whatsoever. From your contract to everything else, you have no say-so, and you're going to find that out in the next few minutes with what you're going to hear. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Matt. I don't know where you want to start. If you want to start us talking about St. John's, that's how we got here.
Yeah, we can talk about St. John's. It was, you know, I had a pretty good tournament, but I got drawn for a polygraph. I've had a couple people say, well, we'll get into this later, but you know, I had done a survey on forward face of sonar, and they thought maybe I was being targeted. I don't really think I was being targeted. We knew the boat numbers that were going to be drawn for polygraph tests before. As soon as I got in, I knew what they were. So there was no way to know where I was going to finish. So I don't think that was the problem. The problem was I was hurt. I'd been hurt the whole month of January. I'd been to pain doctors and out down here in Birmingham, Alabama, twice, 2 weeks, like even immediately leading up to me going down there. So I'm taking steroid shots in the back. I'm taking oral steroids. I'm taking anti-inflammatories. I'm taking, you name it. I'm sleeping 2.5 hours a night because I'm all jacked up and I got drawn for a polygraph test. Well, I told the polygraph examiner when I walked into the room that I was jacked up on meds and my back was hurting. And he's like, oh no, you'll be fine. Well, an hour and a half into this thing, I wasn't fine. And
wait, the polygraph took an hour and a half?
Hour and a half. Yeah. And every time we would take we'd go through the deal, and it would be, man, that was an inconclusive. We don't want no inconclusive hanging over, sir. Man, you almost passed that one. Or what you got on your mind? For an hour and a half, we're like this. And by the time this thing's over, I'm stressed out of my freaking mind. And I ought to read you something. I'm going to read something here. This is off out of the Bass Handbook. I took a screenshot of this. I've taken a lot of polygraphs in my life, from winning boats and everything else. And there's specific guidelines that polygraph examiners shouldn't say anything after the test is over. So that led to a lot of stress. And what happened with that test is they said I admitted, and I did. The polygraph guy said, did you talk to anybody? Have you talked to anybody? I said, I had 2 conversations, period. One with one guy down here and another one, and I didn't receive any information, period. I actually let you cold call the one guy. Yeah. And it was a situation where I fished with this guy on the St. John's River 3 or 4 times over the years. And he called me the last day of practice. In the middle of the day, doing like buddies do, you know. I talk to this guy 2 or 3 days a week now, every week. And how's practice going? if you've ever fished and you got buddies you fish with, years ago in 2009 or 10, he had told me about a place when we could get information about, man, this is the best deal I've ever fished out. This is the juice. I ain't never caught a bass off of it, ever. It was hilarious. He calls, like right about the time, and then when he calls, I'm laughing. He goes, what's so funny? I said, do you remember that place that you told me about years ago? And I always fish it, and I ain't never caught crap. I said, they're all over it. He goes, well, hell, they ought to be over on another place. Well, I was on the other place. Told the polygraph guy that. Didn't matter. In the conversations that happened, Bass says that I asked for information. I never asked for information. In the conversations, people offer stuff, and I never acted on any of the information. I'm gonna give y'all a little definition. I've been doing this a lot of years, and I'm gonna explain to you the way bass fishing is and the rules. Rule number 1, solicitation means to ask for. You call someone or you're around someone and you ask them for something that will help you. And rule number 2, it comes down to the word intent. In bass fishing, if you hear something and you act on it, you intended to gain a competitive advantage. One of the best tournament directors that's ever been, worked at Bass for the majority of my career. Trip welding. Trip welding for years and years and years always told us, if you're doing something that you intend to gain a competitive advantage, you are breaking the rules. I've never done any of this. But Bass says that by me saying I had those conversations, that I intended to gain a competitive advantage. Well, I got news for everybody in the bass fishing world. Number 1, we need to change the rules. The rule needs to be, you better not go near a gas station, your cell phone, a hamburger joint. You better not let anybody say anything to you. You better be locked into a closet, because if you can't help what you hear. Now, what you can help is, did you act on it? I told the polygraph guy in the test, he needed to go get the tournament director and get them in here and let's clear this up. Could ask me, did you act on any of this information? Did you intend to gain a competitive advantage? No tournament director showed up.
Yeah, I think a tournament director at that point, if you didn't act on it, you didn't have the intent, there's no harm, no foul.
No.
And people have asked in here, somebody asked already, I see, well, did you tell Bill Lowen where to go?
No, what was kind of funny is Bill and I are very good friends. And Bill asked me after the deal was over with, that deal with Bill Lowen, historically, I would say out of 7 times that I fished the St. Johns River, or 8 times, historically, I've probably fished north probably more than 50% of the time. In this tournament, with the conditions that were set up, we were there earlier and it was cold or whatever, I just felt like that area, I was worried that north was going to be too cold.
Too cold because the temperature dropped.
Yeah, it was too cold.
The water temperature dropped like 14 degrees.
It did.
Way over there.
But the area, and what was funny is the area that Bill won in, I fished there last year. Every day of that tournament, I was in that creek last year. Bill and I would pass each other. So what everybody needs to understand is, like, I've been to the St. Johns River 10 or 15 times, or how many times? So I fished everything there. And every area that I fished this year and every area I fished last year, I fished in years before.
And I want to make something clear to the people asking about Bill Lowen. First of all, I hate to even give credibility to somebody asking that question, because here's the thing. Bill Lowen would never ask for information nor take that information.
No, never would.
And it pisses me off that the guy's losing credibility. Somebody wants to attack Bill Lowen's credibility on top of this.
Right.
Because Bill Lowen had an incredible tournament, and people don't realize how hard it is to win a tournament. And somebody's went in here and took my kid's name on. That is not my kid, I promise you. Whoever's going as Lake J, it's not my kid. Yeah, the person is saying Lake J, that's not my son, I promise you. I've got a lot of people now that go in and try to make fake accounts. And when they make them about me, it's okay, but people are making them about my kids, with my kids' pictures and stuff. But no, Bill Lowen, he's had such an awesome career. And it upset me to hear people say, well, what if he gave that information to Bill Lowen? That's where Bill Lowen was fishing. I assure you that Bill Lowen didn't take no information. Bill Lowen's one of the most upstanding people you ever meet. And when somebody starts getting their credibility diminished because of something, because the only thing worse than a person that cheats is a person to get accused of cheating that didn't.
Yeah. Bill in no way. Bill, what's crazy that week is normally Bill and I eat dinner together every night. And that week, for whatever reason, we didn't. And I was doing one thing, he was doing another. I was having my wife take me south every morning, all the way down south of Astor, and launch me, and I would fish my way home. And Bill just committed that he was going north and staying north. So we never really crossed paths, never really talk about, I didn't ask him, I wasn't worried about what he was doing. I was doing my thing, he was doing his. So a lot of times there's a lot of these note sharing or whatever, but we didn't talk that week. And I don't know. I don't know why people draw those assumptions. You know, something else I want to tell y'all. I've kind of sat back now for, what's this been, a month?
Yeah.
And I really had to collect my thoughts. I was very upset, still very upset. I don't know why this happened. I don't know why I had trouble with the polygraph. I don't. I truly think it was a combination of my back being hurt and all the medication I was on. If you've ever taken medication that gave you the heebie-jeebie jitters, the stuff that I was taking absolutely wired me for sound.
But let's be clear, you didn't fail the polygraph test. You came back.
Yeah, when I took the
admitted that I spoke to two different people. This is what I spoke about, and they said, "Okay, we're disqualifying you." It wasn't a failed polygraph.
No, I admitted it, and the guy said you passed the test. Well, they didn't ever clear up what I admitted to.
Yeah.
Look, here's the whole thing in a nutshell. Okay, I hope this never happens to anybody out here. I've done this my whole career. I don't know how it's happened. It's terrible it's happened. But the worst thing of all is I fully expect to see whether Bass is going to or not going to publish anything to do with the polygraph, because I was threatened again that if I come on any podcast and said anything about this polygraph, that they would make everything public. But the great part is they told me I was not going to get a copy of the polygraph. I was not in any way going to get that. Nothing to do with the polygraph am I supposed to get, but yet they're going to use it against me publicly.
So there's been 7 or 8 comments that says that Zona said that you failed it 4 times and then you come clean and passed it. How would Zona know that?
I want to address that too. We had a comment on here, a guy said something about I passed or failed it 4 times and I come clean and passed it. Well, I'm going to tell y'all something. This ain't legally over, just so everybody knows. I got a real problem with Bass or anybody sharing a test that I took. In what way does Bass have the right to invade my privacy? Mark Zola is not an employee of Bass. He is a hired independent contractor, an entertainer. Dave Mercer is a hired entertainer. They are not an employee of Bass, but yet Bass has felt like they had it in their parameters to invade my privacy and share information about me with people that should not have seen it. And I got a big problem with that. So we're looking into it and we'll see where this goes. My guy left. I think his battery went dead. The host of the podcast is gone.
I had to pee.
He had to go to the little boy's room. Trying to read these comments. I'm not no podcast guy. Yeah, I see that Mercer had negative things to say. I've got several things that Mercer's had to say. I'm going to screenshot it, where he's went in there and basically said that I asked questions and whatever, and I did not. And trust me, every comment that he's made, I've got it screenshotted. I'm monitoring everything they say.
So I've got a question about the C7 rule.
Yeah.
So the C7 rule, Bassmaster, says that y'all can't say anything negative about sponsors, Bassmaster, or competitors.
Right.
However, we have Mercer out there who makes negative comments about, or allows negative comments, and has made negative comments about anglers.
Right.
I don't know who sponsors that podcast, if that's something that Bassmaster come up with or whatever, but let me make something clear, because I'm not one of them that doesn't, if I'm going to call somebody out, I always say their name, I always say how I feel. Let me make it perfectly clear. I think Mercer's a piece of shit, okay? I don't want there to be any cloudiness or not to be clear that I think Dave Mercer's a piece of shit and the worst thing for Bassmaster, okay? I don't want y'all to have any doubts of how I feel. What he did with Rob G last year, and then he had Rob G on his podcast, and with him on his podcast, he said, "You're not mad at me, are you? Tell him you're not mad at me." Okay, Rob G being one of the best people in the world. Rob G is an awesome person. He put Rob G on the spot, and of course Rob G's not going to say, "Yeah, I had problems." I have problems with Mercer, with what he did at the St. Lawrence. And look, I'm a Rob G fan. You can call me a Rob G homer, whatever you want. I love Rob G. Okay? Dave Mercer does an incredible job. He is great at his job of announcing the tournament. He does a great job. It's the other stuff that I don't agree with, okay? But I don't want to mix anything. I don't want anybody to have any questions about how I feel about Dave Mercer, okay? Let me say it again. Y'all go ahead and start screen recording. I want everybody to know this. Dave Mercer's a piece of shit. Okay, that's how I feel. All right, so we can go forward now.
But that pretty much is the whole deal with my polygraph in a nutshell. I mean, it's, I was on medication. I truly believe if I hadn't been taking all the meds and I was hyped up, I would have never had to admit to no conversations, because in those conversations, I never asked for any help.
Let me ask you this.
Okay.
Do you think, because last year you were critical of the rookies, hell, that ain't nothing, don't nobody know. Let me ask you this. Roles reversed. JT Tompkins, Trey McKinney, anybody in that seat received the information that you received, do you think they should be disqualified for the information you received?
No, because I didn't receive anything.
Okay. And so the other part, we go back to Trip Weldon, and I say it all the time, it goes back to intent. I've said it here. I feel like the polygraphs should be about intent.
It's about intent.
Because Jordan and I, man, we didn't even hardly get to talk last year because y'all came to Wheeler. Me and Jordan fished 2 or 3 tournaments a year on Wheeler when the water gets in the bushes. We couldn't even talk. And so I think that the polygraph should be about intent. But the thing that scares me, somebody asked earlier about my kid fishing Bassmaster. I'm scared to death, because I feel like, because of something we're going to get into in a minute about, Matt being threatened if he wants to talk about it, is we saw this coming. Matt and I saw this coming back in the fall about what's going to happen in the spring. They're going to get me slick. They're going to get me slick. And I worry about that for my kid, about, hey, what if my kid wins an open and then he has to take a polygraph and they say he fails it, knowing my kid didn't do anything wrong, but he can't see the results. You
I
can't
ain't on
talk
bed
about
right now. I'm thinking. Guy said it looked like I was on meds. No, I'm thinking.
So, last year when JT failed the polygraph test, or they come out and said he failed the polygraph test. Listen, I love the Alabama Bass Trail, the MPFL. I love both of them. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes, because even though I have issues with Kay, me and Kay go at it. Kay does a great job with what she does, and the Alabama Bass Trail is one of the best trails in the country. NPFL, listen, I love what they do. I'm not a proponent of banning forward-facing sonar. I don't think it should be banned. I think it should be limited. However, look, in the bass fishing world, we have the best of everything, if you really want to think about it. We have 3 professional leagues. We have the NPFL, which is no forward-facing sonar. We have MLF, which you can only use it for 1 period. Then we have Bassmaster, where you can use it. We have the best of everything, okay? There's nothing professional anglers can fuss about. Go fish the one you want to fish, okay? So
I got something to say.
Go ahead.
The only problem I got with that was the NPFL took a vote within their league and decided they wanted it banned.
And we're going to talk about that.
Oh, wait a minute.
We don't want to go there yet, do you?
Okay, we're gonna go there though.
Okay, we can go there now if you want to.
I mean, we're already on it. Let's just go there.
All right. So one of the things that we wanted. Did they ask guy they claim gave you information? They never contacted that guy that gave him information. The two guys.
And just to make this plain, I reached out to the tournament director. I sent him multiple texts. I tried to explain I'd been taking medication. And I offered, I said, look, the polygraph guy is going to be at Okeechobee the next week. Just sit tight, let me retake the polygraph test, and let's clear this up.
Okay, so I got a question. So during that week, that was the week that the issue with Scott Martin came up.
Right.
So Scott Martin they had scheduled Scott Martin's test for the next Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
The best polygrapher, in my opinion, in the country was there, 15 minutes away. I contacted Bass. I told him he was there. I didn't want Scott to have to wait till Saturday to take a polygraph. I want him to be able to do it then or turn himself in. It's a whole different story. But why did Bass bring a polygraph examiner from California?
That's a good question. Why did we hire a polygraph firm, fly them all the way in California?
I contacted Bass and I asked him when it come to Scott Martin's polygraph, I said, hey, why are y'all getting a guy from California? Or why are you waiting till Saturday? They said, our polygraph examiner is flying in from California. And I asked, why are you getting one from California? T. Doorman, we're about to address that. And they never responded to me about why they were using that one. So, Matt, you and I talked about this beforehand. It's hard to come on here and talk because people think that you're complaining or whining or whatever. You told me, I just want to tell the truth and tell what happened. So let's back up to the fall when we were having all the discussions about forward-facing sonar. We talked about what forward-facing sonar, what changes were going to be made to Bassmaster. After Bassmaster had done their survey, we were told, and I say we, me, you, different people in the bass fishing world, was told by people inside Bassmaster that wasn't the way the vote came out. That wasn't right.
No.
So you did your own survey.
Yeah, I need to tell you why I did it.
All right.
I didn't come up with a brainstorm to do the survey on my own, I promise you. There were people inside of Bass that pretty much let it be known that the numbers wasn't adding up to what they said they were. And that they felt like the anglers needed to do their own survey. And so a lot of these guys, they're not in the position I'm in. They're younger and worried about their careers or whatever. And I get it. But I thought I could do it in a professional way and find out what the numbers were and sit down with the owner. And that's what I did. I did it in a professional way. And by their numbers, according to their survey, it was 33% to leave it the way it was, 33% wanted it limited, and 33% wanted it gone. So they decided, since it was a 3-way split, they just wasn't going to do nothing, which is crazy to me, because you got 33% that wanted it gone and 33% that wanted it limited, but you only got 33% that wanted it left alone. You go with 2/3,
which is what MLF did.
Right. So when I did my survey, it was kind of funny. But I didn't do mine in a 3-way deal. We'd all kind of decided that we knew we wasn't going to get it back.
Now, when you did your survey, I want to back up a minute. Did you contact every Elite Series angler?
No, there was 23 guys that I could not get a hold of, and I could tell you, I could have told you when I wrote down every name and every email and every cell phone number, by the way, which come from somebody inside Bass. When I got all that and I did the survey, that I could have told you when I wrote down the names, because I wrote the name down, whatever, and I actually put a yes or a no
yes,
on it.
Riggy, it will be.
Before I ever called them. I didn't miss on 2 or 3 guys. I mean, what they don't understand is we all run in like little packs, right? And everybody knows everybody, but somebody will know somebody in a different pack. So when we were at Champlain, when this all went down, it was the doggonest beating I've ever been in all the years I've been at Bass. Everybody in that room wanted to vote on forward-facing sonar, standing there mano a mano. They would not let us vote.
Who is they?
Ownership. They were there. We want to talk about our cowboy boots with the bass shield on. That's what we talk about at every meeting. We talk about the cowboy boots with our bass shield and how
we're going to get to why I didn't see Cerebral Tackle's comment, but I see Funky Fisherman looking at it. The reason that Bass didn't want them to, you keep saying if your son's going to fish with them, you might want to be careful how you talk. I'm not fishing it. My son is. So what does that have to do with me? You know, they may not let him fish the opens. I don't know. I guess we'll deal with that when it comes. But if you want to know the truth about it, everybody thinks I bash Bass. I promise you, I've been really, really nice to Bass. With all the stuff that I have, I've been really, really nice to Bass. But let's talk about, before we go back to the survey, because I want everybody to know, user 8977 whatever said Garmin bought Bass. That is 100% correct.
100% correct.
Garmin had a closed door meeting with Bass after they took their money. I'm going to tell you in just a minute, Craig. After they took their money away from MLF, they took $200,000 away from MLF because MLF said, we're going in the Bass Pro Tour to 1/3 of the time using forward-facing sonar. Garmin went to Bass, had a closed-door meeting. I don't know what the number was. I've been told different things. I don't have it exact, so I can't tell you. What I can tell you is that Garmin paid for a 3-year deal, okay, for nothing to be done to forward-face sonar, for it not to be eliminated, okay? And I had come out with a video when I knew this meeting was taking place, and I said, Bass is about to announce Garmin as their sponsor. They did not. And that was part of the deal, is, hey, we're going to pay you this money to keep forward-facing sonar because MPFL's banned it. MLF is limited it. We do not want anything done to this forward-facing sonar. But we can't say that we're a sponsor, because that's going to make it look like we bought you. That's going to make it look like we paid for nothing to happen. So that's why you don't see Garmin as a sponsor. Now, something's going to come out in the next couple of weeks, and the only reason I'm not saying anything is because that angler will get disqualified from the elites forever, okay? But somebody made a comment about Garmin, who's not a sponsor, and this person was threatened to be taken out of the elites, okay? You're going to hear about it. So, back to the results. Everybody's asking what the percentage was. Tell the results of your survey.
I surveyed the field, the returning Elite Series field. just the guys that had requalified for 2025. I had asked the anglers that were there if they thought they could live with if they wanted a limited deal, if they wanted it banned, what do you want? As general consensus was, we could live with a 50-50 split. Half a tournament's with, half a tournament's without. So what I do, I called everybody. I got a hold of everybody, emailed everybody.
Now, what was the percentages?
Roughly 70%, 71% were in favor of a 50-50 season. To use it half the time.
Half the time.
Half the time. That was a compromise. And the only thing I got upset with
All
about
the
it,
rights.
the only thing that upset me about the whole deal is I met with ownership, left them the notebook with every name, every vote, and told them, look, I don't care what you do. I wanted you to know what a real vote looks like. These guys will tell me stuff. Because when they did the survey, it was like 3 or 4 different things, and the way it was done, you wasn't ever going to get a clear-cut answer. It just never was. It was like the vote was just, the survey was designed.
Yeah, the way they designed it, it was going to be small percentages for everything.
And you wouldn't have a clear answer. So we got a clear, defined answer, met with ownership, and I thought everything was cool. Great meeting, great, highly respect the guy. But then all of a sudden, about 2 weeks after that must have been about the time Garmin bought Bass, I get a phone call that I have recorded. I will tell you, I have it recorded. That basically said I would never fish another Bassmaster event if I ever said anything publicly about that survey.
Hold on just a second. Chase Anderson.
I ain't say that. I said ownership.
Okay. Somebody at Bass told you.
Yes, sir.
That if you ever mentioned this survey,
if I went on any podcast, said anything about it publicly, I was done.
That you would never fish another Elite
Done.
Series event.
My son sitting in the seat of the truck, we were on our way home from the lake with a phone on speakerphone. Heard every word of it. Didn't call and say, hey, I heard you was going to go on a podcast. Wish you wouldn't do that. No. Called and said, I ain't going to tell you what he said, but yeah. Never finished. So
I know what he said.
I figured that I truly thought going into this year they'd get me.
Craig, I'll ask that in a second. So that's what I was going back to. Back then, you and I talked.
Right.
And because of that conversation, where you were told if you mentioned it, you'd never fish another Elite Series event. You told me back then, Slick, they're gonna get me.
Oh yeah,
they're gonna get me.
I figured they would. I was vocal enough. And look, I want to tell everybody here watching this podcast, I don't care if the field voted to have everybody there had 12 forward-facing sonar units. I'm good with it, but don't come up with this deal. You're gonna survey the field and ask our opinion, and then backdoor us. We're all grown men. We all know what everybody's thinking. They don't realize that the field understands what's going on. I mean, if it's a business decision and you think it's best for your business, own it. Tell the field, guys, it's just worth too much money to us. This is which way we're going to go.
Yeah. So, kind of the issue with a lot of what's going on, I see a lot of the comments on here, and the issue that we have, and everybody has their opinion on, well, you should have done this, you should have done that, or you can't do this, you can't do that. The issue is that Bassmaster runs their league like a mafia, like communists. And that's what I've been so upset about, because the only thing worse than somebody cheating is to be getting accused of cheating if you're an innocent person. And that's what I feel like has happened, is that there was almost a we're going to get you mentality within Bass, because you have the audio of that being said to you.
Oh yeah.
Of we're going to get you. There's other anglers that also have the same thing. That's all going to come out in time, of where the ownership of Bass has contacted people and said, you're seeing the new me, so to speak. And if you go out and say anything, you're going to get kicked out of Bass. Bass needs you more. You need Bass more than Bass needs you. The same thing happened with an angler this week. And what happens is these guys, that's their livelihood. They can't go say anything or they lose their livelihood.
Look, with me, I left Bass because I quit for the simple reason. Bass fined me $2,500. They took the $5,500 that I won. Basically told me if I'd done anything else that I was gone. And everybody watching this podcast, I want to ask you one simple question. If you knew in your heart you didn't do anything and you hadn't broken a rule, would you pay $2,500? Would you take that punishment? The difference with me and those young guys that I feel sorry for right now is I'm 62 years old and I'm close enough to retirement. I still want to fish and it's killing me that I ain't sitting over at Hartwell right now. Because that's my love. That's what I do. But I am not going to put up with the crap, and I walked away.
There's been people that have failed polygraphs in the past, and I've made comments about polygraphs. I've always believed in polygraphs. I still believe in polygraphs. What I don't believe in is the integrity of the company that gives the polygraphs. I believe that polygraphs can be manipulated to make you pass. In this situation, you know, I talked to you that day. I talked to you the next day, and you told me, Slick, I didn't do anything, and you told the polygraph examiner the context. You told him the exact conversations. This is what I want to get to people. I'm not questioning the polygraph. What I'm questioning is, he told the polygraph examiner, this is who I talked to, this is what I said, and they wouldn't bring in the tournament directors to get context from it. It was, hey, and look, that's not my decision of, okay, the guy told him you should go over here. He said, I'm already there. I don't know what all Josh told you, what was said there. Yeah. But as far as what you told that guy, I'm already there. They said that you asked for information. Now, somebody just brought up Mercer and Toxic. Mercer lied on his podcast. He said that you asked for information.
Yeah, he said I asked questions.
Okay. That's the part that's not true. You can go and debate the information he got, should he be disqualified, whatever. Intent, you can debate all that. But you never ask a question to anybody.
Not even nobody. Not nobody. And if I have my way, I'm going to sit across my deposition table from it very soon. This ain't over. You cannot destroy somebody's career. And you're dang sure not going to publicly make comments that are untruthful. There are consequences for it.
So, while there's people that just come in here, we can go over it again. People are asking what was said when you talked to your buddy from down there. You can start that story over about 20 years ago when it was legal. Tell that one more time for the people that just come in.
Well, I met the guy's name is Danny. I'm not going to say his last name. He years ago when I started fishing the Elite Series in 2009, 2010, it was legal to get information. I met Danny through a friend of a friend in a boat launch while I was down there pre-fishing. He and I hit it off. We've been friends for years. I talked to him 2 or 3 days every week. Danny just stayed in my house in November for an ABA national.
And let me say something. I called Danny. He had no idea I was calling him, none whatsoever. I called him, and after all this took place, I called him up and I said, Danny, I hate to put you on the spot, but I've asked Matt everything that was said between y'all, everything that was talked about, and I hate to put you on the spot, but you're going to have to be word for what he told me. And he was. And not only that, I said, you were there in the fall. What happened then? He said, man, he said, the first thing that would happen when I come in that house was Matt said, don't you tell me nothing about Florida. I can't get no information about Florida. And he said, look, he wanted to go public, but it was not good for him to do that about the conversation that took place and about everything that's happened. But I'm not here. I want everybody to know I'm not defending you on the polygraph. I want you to tell what happened. I have my own feelings on it. I just think that there should be an independent source. If you fail a polygraph and you want to appeal it and say I'm wrong, you should be able to have an independent one to go with it, because now nobody trusts Bass. They run the organization like the mafia. I think there should be something besides that to go further, because why else would you not want to give somebody results from their polygraph?
That is kind of funny, isn't it?
That don't make sense to
if
me.
Any employer in America that you take a polygraph test from, you're entitled to a copy of the report. Anytime you take one, but not Bass. You're not entitled to it. And if you say anything about it publicly, they'll use that against you publicly.
So what we've got is they threatened you back before the year started that you were never going to fish another Elite Series event if you said one more word about the survey.
Okay.
And then they fly a polygraph examiner in from California, like there ain't one between here and California, and you didn't fail the polygraph test. They said the problem was there were some questions and we want to know what you're thinking about. And
look, if a guy, you can't control, just like Danny, and Danny didn't mean any harm, and Danny didn't do anything wrong. But if you're sitting there and me and Danny's bullshitting about a place that we fished together, and I'm, just got through fishing it, telling me there, and he just instantly goes, well, hell, if they're there, Matt, they ought to be on that other place we fished, over at Jimmy's Cove.
And you were at Jimmy's Cove.
I was at Jimmy's Cove. And look, just so everybody knows, the first place that they were on is about 200 yards from Jimmy's Cove. It ain't, it's just right there. I'm in that area, I'm fishing. And he didn't mean nothing by it. I didn't ask for any information. He pops it off and he goes, I said, you can't take this, don't tell me nothing. End of story, but we never got that far.
So let me ask you a question. I was on the phone with an Elite Series angler the day after this happened. And a guide comes through and he's got clients on his boat. And this angler's on the phone with me. We're talking about some business stuff. And a client says, you need to be throwing a frog at the bank. They're hitting a frog on the bank. Okay, at that point, he said, Slick, what do I do? I said, hell, I don't know. I said, well, everything just went on with Matt. Call Lisa and tell her. Okay, so he called Lisa and said, hey, guy just told me throwing a frog at the bank. So he received information, but he called Lisa and said, hey, this happened. Do you think that, have y'all ever been told that if something like that happens, you need to call Lisa or Chris and say, hey, this just happened?
I've always looked at it like this. People say stuff all the time, but if you weren't going to do it, I'll tell you a story.
It's intent.
It's intent. James Niggemeyer and I were practicing for the Classic at Hartwell. It was colder than blue blazes. It was nighttime. We were at a gas station getting fuel. We were on either side of the pump. Guy walks by. I asked him, hey boys, y'all catching them? I said, nah, pretty tough. Man, y'all need to be throwing a gold shad rap. They bite. James is angling about everything. I love James. The flies by the roads. He's wet. I got to call Trip. I said, James, why do you got to call Trip? Because we received information. I said, you wasn't throwing a gold shad rap? He goes, no. I said, well, you ain't now. And I opened my rod locker up and I pointed in there. I said, there's 3 gold shad wraps in there, James. Wintertime staple in Alabama. I was doing it anyway. That's what I've been doing. So why am I going to call a trip? I said, the deal is, if you weren't going to throw a gold shad wrap, you ain't now.
Yeah.
It's intent.
It's intent.
And nobody ever asked me at St. John's, was it intent? Did I receive information that I intended to gain a competitive advantage? No. They said I received information. I had a conversation. The exact email said I had multiple conversations. No, I had 2. And on neither one of those conversations did I ever ask for any information.
But that's what Dave Mercer said you did.
Well, Dave Mercer's a liar. Straight up.
Craig wanted to know if you know, I don't know. He said, what percentage of Elite Series anglers would pass a polygraph if they had to take one today?
A bunch of them. A bunch of them. What happened to me was just a rare situation, okay? And look, it could have been the polygraph guy that just wanted to, I guess he thought he was on a murder case. And he literally, he battered my ass for an hour and a half. I'm already on meds and everything else, and I promise y'all don't want that polygraph test.
So this is, I'm glad somebody brought that up. Craig brought that up, because I'm going to tell you something that happened during JT Tompkins' polygraph. One of the most trustworthy anglers we know, I will not call his name, he was taking the polygraph before JT Tompkins. Chris Bowes, the tournament director, walked in and said to the polygraph guy, this is not the guy we're looking at. Okay? At no point in time, GP Beast Mode is going on YouTube. At no point in time should a polygraph examiner, a tournament director, walk in and talk to a polygraph examiner and say, hey, this ain't the guy we're looking at. We want the next guy. And that's what he said. Okay? Not to mention, Bass got a polygraph examiner that had on his website, cheapest polygraphs in New York, $99.99. A guy that had charges brought against him that were later dropped, but he had charges for falsifying records. He lost his job for falsifying records. Now there were some technicalities, he got out of it, but he ended up losing his job. And Bass, doing their great due diligence that they do, got this guy to do a polygraph. Now let me go ahead and say something. Y'all get on me, a lot of people do, because I'm always on the leadership of Bassmaster. Let me go ahead and say something. Chase Anderson is a spoon-fed, what do you call, trust fund baby. And that's okay, because a lot of them are really smart guys. Chase Anderson couldn't run the drive-through at a Taco Bell. And I hate to talk about people that run the drive-through at Taco Bell, but Chase Anderson couldn't do that. Okay? That's why they brought in Philip Johnson, because he's the Rip of Yellowstone. You know what I'm saying? Like Rip comes in and fixes things. That's what Philip Johnson come in to do for Chase Anderson, because Chase's granddaddy said, whoa. He said, we gave him the keys to the Mercedes. All he had to do is keep it between the yellow lines, and he can't even do that. So Philip had to come in and drive the car. Okay? Chase Anderson has no business running Bassmaster. And part of the reason, hold on, 2 objects that are the same.
We're having technical
difficulties. Part of the reason that I get so upset with the people that are running Bassmaster is because, look, Bassmaster is the pinnacle of the sport. The Bassmaster Classic is the crown jewel. That's the most awesome thing in bass fishing, and I want to keep it that way. But we got people that's trying to run it off the tracks. We got people that's trying to run it like the mafia.
We need to talk, there's something that happened this year that got swept under the rug, and the general public thinks it was the greatest thing that ever was. Bass, out of the goodness of their heart, took away our entry fees.
Oh God, I'm fixing to I gotta pee before we talk about this one.
Y'all hold on.
Oh shit.
Y'all hold on.
Keep talking to him. Let me pee, because this one's gonna take a minute.
Bass, out of the goodness of their hearts this year, announced that we were gonna not have any entry fees. And everybody thought, oh wow, that's great. And all the riff and blow up about that, and guys trying to figure out whether they were gonna contribute money to the entry fees pot, come up with a side pot or something to fix it where they could even make a living. That they missed the part about in the middle of the night, Bass went and totally reworked the participation agreement. And on my Facebook page, I mentioned a contract of adhesion. That's what it is. The new participation agreement is the contract of adhesion, where basically Bass has all the rights and the anglers have none. When you no longer are paying entry fees, you are no longer a paying customer. You are an invited guest, basically, and you have zero rights. And in one swoop of a pen, by taking our entry fees away, and everybody making the world think that it was a great place, we no longer had any rights as anglers. They took it away from us, and Garmin bought the tour. That about correct?
It is. I'm going to explain why Bass did the no entry fee. So they were sent basically the federal law by someone. I sent it to them too, but somebody else did. They sent them the federal law, which says basically if you're a contract employee but you're paying into the organization, you can't be retaliated against for free speech. Now, if you're a straight contract employee, they can dictate what you say. So Bass, not to make it better on the anglers, but to keep themselves out of trouble, said, well, let's just cut out the entry fees where they're a straight contract employee. Once you do that, you can dictate what somebody can and cannot say. That's why the contracts were changed. Now, I don't know, once y'all got the new contract, how many days were y'all given to sign it?
Oh, 4 days. I think that's called duress.
4 days with a brand new contract, sign it or be kicked out.
It was plain and said. We got emails, we got texts from Davey, we got texts, everybody. You will sign it or you will not participate. Period. Done.
So that's what I had heard, that Davey had sent y'all text saying you sign it or you're gone.
Yeah, and look guys, the one biggest thing you got to understand is all of us sign contracts with sponsors and have agreements that were done in the fall, and it's all based off of Elite Series participation. So even though there was a whole pile of us that didn't want to sign it, what you gonna do? You had to sign it.
And this is part of the problem I have with the Andersons owning Bassmaster. They don't own it for the goodness of the sport. They own it for the printing, for the media. Okay? They own TNT Fireworks for the printing. They own Whataburger for the printing. Books A Million for the printing. Bassmaster. Why they own Bassmaster? 515,000 memberships, printing those magazines. That's what it's all about. It's not about the goodness for the angler. And I'm all about the angler benefiting, and that's not what it's about. And I listen, I know everybody has to make money. I'm good with that. But our anglers are getting shafted. I mean, you finish 40th place and you get $500. Now, the anglers paid in a $10,000 membership, and I said at the beginning of the year, if Bass doesn't do something, a lot of these people aren't going to fish. The name of the YouTube channel is Slick Calm. I haven't made it active yet. Once we get all this edited, it'll go on there. It's called Slick Calm. All of this will be on there.
2009, I joined the Elite Series. Since 2009, I've fished for less money every year. We haven't had a cost of living raise. The sponsors are the ones that's taking it on the chins. They're the ones that keep having to pony up more and more money to keep these guys out there. But the league has set that one cap dollar. They're going to pay that one cap dollar. And how can that be?
Yeah.
And look, have you ever seen a multi-million-dollar corporation that's never made money? Since I've been fishing bass, they've never made money.
Well, that's because their printing company makes money off of printing 515,000 magazines.
But whether it was this owner or the previous owner, they've always been in trouble.
Yeah.
They're really struggling. And it's a doggone thing. I ain't never figured out how to cut
milk.
Milk.
That's milk.
That's straight milk. On ice.
Well, the way we have $500,000 purses, or the way we have $300,000 now, is the sponsors. I mean, now, back in the day, we had who was it? National Guard. We had National Guard. We had Walmart. I mean, think about the sponsors we had back in the day.
Well, FLW at the time, if FLW, when I started my career at FLW, 2003 to 2008, gave me look at the names
Yes,
that come
ma'am.
from there. And it gave us a bunch of us an opportunity to fish for some real money. And the only thing that kept FLW from taking the sport over, totally eliminating bass, was a Bassmaster Classic. That's the one event that they never had. If they'd have had that event with the money that all the corporate 500 sponsors were put into that deal, Irwin Jacobs and FLW would have owned this sport.
Christian.
What's that?
JT said Bush and Redman, and
Oh, yeah.
and they talked about the classic should be $1 million. Man, the problem we have right now in bass fishing is that we don't have the eyeballs. Most of the people that watch tournament fishing are tournament fishermen, and I'm going to say a high number of 500,000 people watch tournament fishing. And there's more people that watch Ben Milliken, Scott Martin, and even Norby and the YouTubers than watch tournament fishing. And we have to find a way to get them there. And I don't know the answer to that. I wish I did, because I want professional fishermen to get paid like professionals. I mean, that's what sucks if you think about it. You're one of the top 100 elite guys in your sport, and some of these guys are going home and roofing houses on the weekend.
The money's just not what it was, and it's getting worse.
In 2008 or 2006, Jeff Creek had a contract with Longhorn for $250,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see those kind of sponsorships anymore.
Well, since 2009 is when the economy really took a hit. But we come back briefly around COVID, and it was just incredible. But it's kind of plateaued off again, and it is what it is. But
do you think that's because of social media, the people from social media are taking some of that up, or what do you think it is?
yeah, some YouTubers are doing that. There's some stuff like that going on. But look, it's everybody thinks we're growing the sport. But the problem is we've got some youth coming into the sport. But what's going on with forward-facing sonar and some of the other stuff, the guy that drives this sport, the guy that spends the money in this sport, is 30 to 65 years old with an expendable income. And what's going on in this sport with all the technology and everything else, the guy that works a job used to show up and fish derbies on the weekend, he flat figured out he can't play no more.
He can't compete.
He can't compete. And that technology and what it's done is we've taken a lot of expendable income and it's gone.
But let me ask you this. You say that that's who drives the sport. Okay, if there's 500,000 people that tournament fish,
Mm-hmm.
the ones that buy the boats, buy the bunches of lures, rods, but 56 million people bought license.
Mm-hmm.
So the other 55.5 million are spending money too.
Yeah.
So are we saying that the 55.5 million don't spend as much as the 500,000 do?
I don't know. There's some contradictory numbers there because all the stuff that's going on with the Coosa River and my meetings with the state of Alabama. According to the state of Alabama DCNR, license sales are at 1973 levels.
Is that low?
And we're still the same number of people that were buying license in
Alabama.
1973. That's the same number we're at today. So some ain't registered. Either their numbers on license sales are off, or the numbers we're saying people that are involved in the sport's off. So some somewhere ain't adding up. Or are there more people buying license and fishing off the bank than there are buying? I mean, every boat launch is full, so it's not registered in my head where the cross connection is with the numbers.
Yeah, I'm not smart enough to know
I'm not even,
that.
I'm just using data that they said.
Let me see what JT said, because JT always knows. JT said, no, they don't. Most people buy a combo, run real license worms, and go fish. Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. It's like the JT saying most people buy a combo, worms, and go fish, and I agree. what I'm wondering is, does that 500,000 that watches tournament fishing, the 500,000 that tournament fishes, are they spending more money than the other 55 million?
Sure. Seen the price of a boat.
Yeah.
You buy a lot of rubber worms, man. A lot of red worms.
I agree with you, G Square. There's a lot more boats on the water in 1973.
The show is. In 1973, if I was lucky enough to go fishing with my dad during the week, you'd never see a boat all day. You can't show up at a boat launch in Alabama during the week and get sparkling fish.
T. Dorman, I think Jordan liked to go back to bass because of 5 fish. I think had MLF stayed at 5 fish, I don't think Jordan ever leaves.
It was the format.
It was the format. And because of forward-facing sonar and the format of bass, I mean, MLF hit it on the head. They nailed it. Third of the time with forward-facing sonar. Bass doesn't have the format to do that. I don't know how they're going to deal with it.
I'll tell you what, dude, I fished 2 MPFL tournaments this year. And it's the most fun I've had in my career in 10 years.
Man, we're going to talk about the MPFL because I love the MPFL. Not because they're forward-facing, no forward-facing sonar. I just love the MPFL.
I just like the direction. I like the leadership. Look, to put on a good tournament, you ain't got to be nobody's friend. You just got to be consistent.
But speaking of MPFL, number one, I want to say this before I ask you a question. Luke Duncan is awesome. I think I'm a Luke Duncan fan. I would love if he took over Dave Mercer's job. But
no, I want to keep him at the MPFL.
At the MPFL, you and Swindle and everybody that's come from the elites has said the same thing. They make y'all feel special. They love having you there.
They love having us there. I mean, you show up in the morning, they're busting their hump to launch your boats, park your trucks. You come in the evening, they've got a very unique weigh-in format in the afternoon. And when I first seen it, I was like, the weigh-out's kind of stretched, the weigh-ins are stretched out from, say, 3 o'clock to 5:15, 5:30. But what it is everybody in fishing that weighs fish, they come in, they get a bag, they put out 25, 30 bags, you wind up with this big old backed up line at the tanks. You got all these fish in the tanks. It takes forever to get through the process. With the MPFL, you roll up there, like my wife drives my truck. I put the boat on the trailer, I go straight to the bump tanks. Sean, our tournament director, standing there, all our weigh-ins are drive-through. So they never come out of the live well.
That's awesome.
So when you come in, you go straight to the bump tanks, you put your fish in a mesh bag, they stay in the live well, they never come out. You go straight up to the stage, you weigh them, and they go straight to release boat. And in the afternoons, literally from the time I come to the trailer to the time I exit the weigh-in stage, it ain't 10 minutes. It's done. There's no standing in line 45 minutes.
And your fish are taken care of.
The fish are taken care of. It's one of the most unique formats I've ever seen. I was kind of like, boy, how's this going to work? It's awesome, man. I mean, it's absolutely awesome. Everything about it, and it's really great to see people that run the organization that want you there. It's just a different deal.
And listen, Brad Fuller's awesome. You can say what you want, but you know where he stands.
He ain't gonna sugarcoat it. He kind of like me. Don't ask him a question you're afraid to answer because you're gonna get it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Chandler, I don't know. I know as far as how does bass care about the fish. I mean, I know Fish Long went up there last year, and after day one, they told them to move their things to the front of the line because the fish were too lively, and it was affecting the show. I think bass cares more about their production, honestly.
Sure, it's a TV show. It's always has been.
The FLW didn't quit. There was an accident that caused some issues. And MLF ended up buying them. Davy's not really for the anglers. Davy's for Davy, plain and simple. Davy has turned into a yes man for bass. Everybody thought he was going to be for the anglers, but you know, Davy just wanted an angler kicked out forever because of something he said about Davy. So You know, I don't appreciate that, Davey. And that I've always liked Davey, but in this situation, Davey was a little bitch. I don't know the bass's mortality rate.
I don't either. They do. I mean, every one of these tournament organizations does their best. I mean, of course, MLF, BPT, with their weight, catch and release, catch, weigh, and release. That's probably the best format we could go to. It's just a unique format, and it's hard to do on a larger scale.
Did you see that question? Would you still be at Bass if Tripp was the tournament director?